Let me go over to Belmont reports that everyone who's voting in my poll understands why I've had to jump in. Let me first, I'm gonna read excerpts of it. Actually, it's quite long, so I'll link you to it, but let me read you some excerpts of it. Basic ethical, okay, and the introduction is long. Boundaries between practice and research. And it says, okay, so let me begin with part B. The expression basic ethical principles refers to those general judgments that serve as a basic justification for the many particular ethical prescriptions and evaluations of human actions. Three basic principles among those generally accepted in our cultural tradition are particularly relevant to the ethics of research involving human subjects: the principles of respect of persons, beneficence, and justice. Respect for persons incorporates at least two ethical convictions. First, that individuals should be treated as autonomous agents, and second, that persons with diminished autonomy are entitled to protection. The principle of respect for persons thus divides into two separate moral requirements: the requirement to acknowledge autonomy and the requirement to protect those with diminished autonomy. And it goes on and on and on, and it says, in most cases of research involving human subjects, respect for persons demands that subjects enter into the research voluntarily and with adequate information. In some situations, however, application of the principle is not obvious. The involvement of, and it talks about prisoners, like if you're doing physical experiments, but you get the point. The point is, okay, and then it says, because they were giving, like, if you do experiments on prisoners or something, respecting persons in most hard cases is often a matter of balancing competing claims urged by the principle of respect itself. Beneficence. Persons are treated in an ethical manner not only by respecting their decisions and protecting them from harm, but also by making efforts to secure their well-being. Such treatment falls under the principle of beneficence. The term beneficence is understood to cover acts of kindness or charity that go beyond strict obligation. In this document, beneficence is understood in a stronger sense as an obligation. Two general rules have been formulated as complementary expressions of beneficent actions in this sense: do not harm and maximize possible benefits and minimize possible harms. And the one that I want to go to is justice. Justice. Okay, wait, maybe, hang on. Okay, I'm gonna read just the excerpt and then go down to the applications. Questions of justice have long been associated with social practices such as punishment, taxation, and political representation. Until recently, these questions have not been associated with scientific research. However, they are foreshadowed even in the earliest reflections of the ethics of research involving human subjects. For example, and then it talks about okay, and it talks about some of the horrors that happened, such as the Tuskegee incident and such as the Holocaust. And by the way, when people are making those kinds of comparisons on either side, I just think it's, for one thing, really getting off topic. I'm not asking how you feel about what certain Messianic Jews do or what certain non-Messianic Jews do or what certain other people say. I'm asking, let me read my question. It says very clearly, how tolerant are you toward Messianic Jews? So it's asking a general question. I gave 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 options which a person could choose from, and I just think that it's really not fair to attack a person or attack people in general for the way that they might vote. For example, some of the really inappropriate comments I've gotten here include, but are not limited to, the following. For example, attacking the researcher, I don't ever think is appropriate. And like I said, one of the things they said in the Belmont report was when they talked about, quote unquote, subsequently the exploitations of unwilling prisoners as research subjects in Nazi concentration camps was condemned as a particularly flagrant injustice. Of course, they're using politically correct language. They're saying unwilling prisoners. We know that in terms of the Holocaust, the quote-unquote unwilling prisoners were unfortunately way more than prisoners, and they were often murder victims and frankly ethnocide victims. And when people make comparisons like the following to attack each other, to attack the researcher, or to attack whoever, I think that's really inappropriate. And I'm going to give examples from both sides. For example, one person said, and I'm going to read this, "You want to know why Jews are so intolerant of Messianic Jews? One just has to look at how you try to redefine Judaism away from what Jews have stated Judaism is. What next? You're going to tell us we are a different race to everyone else and adopt a Nazi's definition, gotten around to measuring our heads to fit into your local phrenologist data?" And I really don't think comments like that are inappropriate, because I'm asking, for example, how he feels about Messianic Jews. I'm asking, how tolerant are you of Messianic Jews? I'm not asking him how others feel. I'm asking how he feels. I'm asking what his feelings are. And this is, I think, an example of an appropriate answer. Whether or not you agree with it is up to you, and whether I agree with it or not, I'm not going to say, but I think an appropriate answer to the question, how tolerant are you of Messianic Jews, this is an appropriate answer, whether or not you agree with it, and whether or not I agree with it. This is what the person says. She says, quote, "I don't like missionaries," and her vote was, "I am very intolerant toward Messianic Jews." That was just her giving her feelings. That was just her expressing what she feels. She wasn't attacking anybody. She wasn't saying, oh, you know, Messianic Jews are this, or on the other side, oh, all Jews are this, or on the other side, so-and-so is this, or so-and-so is that. She was staying relevant to the question. She was answering in a way that would be appropriate and relevant to the question. And here's another answer that's appropriate. Again, whether or not you agree with it is up to you. And I'm going to get to one of the answers, like I said before, that was inappropriate on the other side. He says, this is one of the ones that was appropriate, whether or not you agree with it and whether or not I agree with it. He said, "Heard nothing good about them, heard plenty of stories of their aggressive missionary tactics toward the Jewish community." And again, let me give another appropriate answer, whether or not you agree with it and whether or not I agree with it. "We kicked one of their missionaries out of our shul recently. How much more disrespectful can you get than to go into a place, to go to the place of worship of someone else and then try to engage people praying there in discussions about other religions?" And again, that's their answers, whether or not you agree with their answers. The three examples that I read that were appropriate examples of answers, they were giving their feelings, they were sticking to the question, they were not getting off into irrelevant tangents, they were saying, this is the way I feel, and this is the way I feel for this reason. And whether or not you agree with their answers, whether or not I agree with their answers, they gave honest answers, they stuck on topic, they, again, stayed relevant to the question, they didn't get into attacking the researcher or intimidating voters. For example, the inappropriate answer that I read, the inappropriate answer where he talked about, quote-unquote, gotten around to measuring our heads to fit into your local phrenologist data. Well, first of all, he's attacking the researcher. I wasn't asking any question that would violate the Belmont report at all. Secondly, he got off into an irrelevant tangent. Third, he generalized for everybody. He didn't speak only for himself, and he could have easily, by that comment, intimidated someone who would have come here and vote. And let me read you, actually, let me read you an example of a comment that might really intimidate someone and might make them think, wow, if I vote in one or another way, I'm gonna get you know, and unfortunately there are people who do this on all sides. But for example, if someone wanted to come in and vote that they were Messianic, or someone wanted to come in and say, hey, I'm not Messianic, but I'm tolerant of Messianic Jews, they could rightly feel that they're going to be intimidated by other voters because of comments like this. And people have been accusing me of removing comments, which I have not done at all, which I can't do anyway. And trying to find some of the comments. Well, okay, here's another inappropriate answer, and people have accused me of removing these kinds of comments. I have not removed comments. I can't even remove comments. I would report some of these comments if I could, but believe me, that's not what I'm supposed to do as a researcher. And let me read you some of the comments here. Obviously, he's not answering for just himself. He's not giving why he feels the way that he feels. He's not sticking to the question as much. He says, quote, your explanation below shows you only want the brain dead to respond, as the comments I read prove. If you ever actually decide to learn to think for yourself, start here. And then he gives a link. And obviously most of the inappropriate comments that I've seen so far, maybe not most, but at least half, are coming from the ones who say that they're intolerant or very intolerant. And I did see a comment where someone said that they were intolerant, but I haven't had to deal much with her because she at least is giving how she feels, and she might be doing some of what she's doing, but it's not to the level that some of these people have gone. And let's see. And let me give you another example of an inappropriate comment. He says that he is very intolerant, and then he decides to speak up for everybody. People are not tolerant of identity theft and fraud when it comes to money. Why should Jews be tolerant of it when it comes to our religion and spiritual identity? And again, he's speaking for everybody. He's not sticking to the question. He's trying to obviously engage in activity that's not appropriate to a research question. And people are accusing me of deleting all these comments, but like I said, I'm not deleting any of them. And this might be the one that is intimidating people. I'd have to go back and look, but that's clearly one of the comments that would intimidate people. People are not tolerant of identity theft and fraud when it comes to money. Why should Jews be tolerant of it when it comes to religion and spiritual identity? So a person who might come and vote on this poll, if they're Messianic, or if they're not Messianic but they tolerate Messianic Jews, might say, well, I don't want to vote one way in this poll and then be thought of as a person who, according to some people, tolerates identity theft and fraud. And let's see. Here's here's one of the other inappropriate comments where he was attacking the researcher again. Don't expect him to reply. The asker has blocked him, since evidently she is comfortable with proselytizing from non-Jews, but uncomfortable with the Jewish point of view being expressed. And I will read you one of the comments, like I said, from the other side, where it shows that I am not, quote-unquote, comfortable with proselytizing from non-Jews. And I have let the, quote-unquote, Jewish point of view be expressed several times. I read you several comments. The one where she said, for example, quote-unquote, I don't like missionaries. That's how she feels. That's why she is intolerant of Messianic Jews. She is speaking for herself. She is giving what she believes and why she believes it. And let's see. Okay. Let's see. This could be an intimidating question or an intimidating comment. You do realize that as few as 50 years after the death of Jesus, you had Christians demanding that the Roman Emperor recognize them as not being Jewish. And while Domitian refused, his successor Neva capitulated their demands to recognize Christians as not being Jewish in 96 AD, just 60 years after the time Jesus supposedly died. Yes, I know, quote-unquote, Messianic Jews like to try and push the fact that early Christians were supposedly Jewish. The reality is that the historical record shows the split between Jews and Christians happened very quickly. And why are Jews hostile towards Messianic Jews? Simple, we object to their dishonesty, we object to their fraud, we object to their predatory missionary tactics, whether they have tried to target the vulnerable, the sick, the elderly in their attempts to convert Jews. There was even a case where, quote-unquote, Messianic Jewish couple infiltrated a home feeding scheme for the elderly to get vulnerable people to preach to. It was revealed when one of their elderly victims told their children, and a complaint was made to the charity, if quote-unquote Messianic Jews were honest and called themselves Christians and did try to most represent themselves as, or did not try, whatever he's saying, no one would care, but they are not honest and have elevated dishonesty to the level of Holy Sacrament. Well, again, if I'm Messianic Jewish, or if I'm not Messianic, but I tolerate Messianic Jews, I'm not going to feel comfortable voting in a certain way if I think that I'm going to get comments that are going to be like, oh, you're siding with those, you know, he used the words predatory and other words like that. If I wanted to vote one way, but someone was going to accuse me of siding with people who were fraudulent or predatory or what have you, then I don't know that I would be comfortable, because you can see how people have already attacked me, and even I got a very nasty private message this morning that I immediately moved to the trash. He said, let's see, he said he created another profile to do this, and then he let's see, question to the community, and see, he said, yep, made sure you have nice visibility to at least one Jewish community. Doubt you'll like their answers, though. And I didn't say that he couldn't send me answers. In fact, I have asked that people share the poll, and they don't have to. That's their choice. And obviously this guy is trying to already intimidate me and attack me as the researcher, and I can read you comments where people have tried to intimidate other people. Like I said, there were, like, okay, here's the anti-Semitic comment that I was referring to that could intimidate people, and this is what the anti-Semite said. Quote, if Iran nukes you all, it'll be better than you deserve, unquote. And that could obviously intimidate a voter who's Jewish and who want to come here, and then he or she might say, well, I'm not going to vote on this poll if people are making comments like that, because I'm afraid that I'll get an anti-Semitic comment directed toward me, which this one person already had an anti-Semitic comment directed toward them, but they were also making an inappropriate comment. And I'm not saying that I'm not saying that the anti-Semitic comment was right, and I'm saying at the same time that their comment was not right either. And unfortunately, that's what's going on a lot. People have engaged in fighting and attacking each other, and that's just not the way a research project is supposed to work. And let me give you an example where, okay, so someone had to explain, because I guess she felt like she was being intimidated. She said, quote, I see it, okay, she was giving her feelings. She said, I see it as they believe in both religions. It's hardly theft or fraud, and no, I'm not a Messianic Jew. I hardly ever even hear the term. And so I guess she felt like she had to clarify, and to have to clarify yourself to another voter, obviously you feel like you're being intimidated, obviously you feel like you can't answer honestly without being attacked, and then having to clarify yourself. And like I said, here on the other side, where someone was engaging in inappropriate behavior on the other side, someone was saying, and this guy was being inappropriate too, but then this other guy whose comment I'm about to read, he responded back inappropriately. You want to see people get really worked up about religion? Check out the atheist. They really get their panties in a twist. Well, if I'm an atheist and I'm seeing that on this poll, I'm going to be like, I'm not sure that I want to vote on this poll, because no matter what I say, this guy's going to attack me, and then I won't be able to vote honestly the way that I want to vote. And people do get afraid when they feel like they're going to be attacked for what they say, and people do get to the point where they're like, you know what, if people are just going to attack me, and people are not going to just agree to disagree, and if people are not going to let me answer honestly, then I'm just not going to vote. Forget it. I'm not going to participate. And Let me also read you some other inappropriate comments. Like, one got into a fight about what Christianity was, and I'm like, okay, that's not what obviously the poll was about. I was asking, how tolerant are they toward Messianic Jews? And as I said, there were definitely some arguments here. And let's see. So obviously there were, like, I'm trying to find one of the comments. Maybe it was reported, thankfully not by me, but by other people. And okay, here's one. Here's one that, whoa, this is totally inappropriate. Let's see. The guy says, stupid question, and he's allowed to attack the validity of the question, and here's more voter intimidation on another side. It's important to some. The only thing stupid is your response. And so I said to him, he's allowed to attack the validity of the question. Part of the research project involves honest votes and comments from the researchees. And he said, and I'm allowed to discuss the validity of his post. As I said, I'd like people to really stick to their own answers and speak for themselves and give honest answers and comments. Again, this is how they feel. The question is, how tolerant are you? Not how tolerant is he, or how tolerant is she, or how tolerant is your neighbors, brothers, sisters, mothers, cousin, twice removed. The question is, how tolerant are you toward Messianic Jews? And I mean, there are obviously answers I do not agree with, and there are answers I agree with, but as long as they're saying, I don't like whatever about Messianic Jews, or I don't like this, or I like this, or I feel this way, then I'm okay with that, because, okay, like this one person gave an appropriate answer. She said, I am Jewish. I personally don't believe that once you think Jesus is the Son of God, that you're technically a Jew anymore. But hey, whatever makes him happy. And that's her opinion. That's fine. She gave her opinion. She said that she was neither tolerant nor intolerant, / she's apathetic in regards to Messianic Jews, and she gave her opinion. She said, I personally don't believe, and she was saying, okay, this is the way I feel, this is why I feel it, and she spoke for herself, she stuck to the question, and here too it says, in terms of the one thing I was going to read is social justice. Okay, it says, just as the principle of respect for persons finds expression in the requirements for consent, and the principle of beneficence and risk-benefit assessment, principle of justice gives rise to moral requirements that there be fair procedures and outcomes in the selection of research subjects. Justice is relevant to the selection of subjects of research at two levels, the social and the individual. Individual justice Individual justice in the selection of subjects will require that researchers exhibit fairness. Thus, they should not offer potentially beneficial research only to some patients, or in this case, voters and commenters, who are in their favor, or select only quote-unquote undesirable persons for risky research. Social justice requires a distinction be drawn between classes of subjects that ought and not ought to participate in any particular kind of research based on the ability of members of that class to bear burdens and on the appropriateness of placing further burdens on already burdened persons. Thus, it can be considered a matter of social justice that there is an order of preference in the selection of classes of subjects, e.g. adults before children, and that some classes of potential subjects, e.g. the institutionalized mentally infirm or prisoners, may be involved as research subjects, if at all, only on certain conditions. And there's other things. And in this case it says, thus it can be considered a matter of social justice that there is an order of preference in the selection of class subjects. And then talks about injustice may appear in the selection of subjects, even if individual subjects are selected fairly by investigators and treated fairly in the course of research. Thus, injustice arises from social, racial, sexual, and cultural biases institutionalized in society. Thus, even if individual researchers are treating their research subjects fairly, and even if institutional review boards are taking care to assure that subjects are selected fairly within a particular institution, unjust social patterns may nevertheless appear in the overall distribution of burdens and benefits of research. Although individual institutions or investigators may not be able to resolve a problem that is pervasive in their social setting, they can consider distributive justice in selecting research subjects. So, I'm trying to protect the voting and the commenting rights of everyone, but I want everyone to stick to their own answer why they feel what they feel, and if they feel that they can't participate because, for example, they hate Messianic Jews so much, it would just be unconscionable for them to even have to answer a question about Messianic Jews. Or in one case I had to deal with, she said, and where was it? She said, let's see, trying to find a comment, and she said she felt like she couldn't participate, but she answered the question anyway. I'm trying to find it because I just found very strange that she would answer like she was forced to answer when she was clearly not forced to answer. She voluntarily answered. She said, okay, I'm trying to find a comment because I just found a comment very inappropriate given that she chose to volunteer for this. sometimes it takes me a while to find a comment, so you have to forgive me, but I found this comment very inappropriate because, okay, she said, I prefer not to say how I feel toward Messianic Jews, which is fine, but then she goes on and says, I very much resent being asked this question. There are a heck of a lot more important issues to discuss today than someone's religion. Well, and it says, it talks about again, let's see. Okay, it says, you know, she clearly had the burden of, being for reasons of conscience or reasons of relevance or what have you. She said, there are a heck of a lot more important issues to discuss today than someone's religion. Well, she felt like for whatever reason she could not answer the question, but she answered the question anyway, and I had to explain to her, I had to say, because I said, your answer was entirely voluntary, you did not have to answer the question, your answer and data are being used only for research purposes and neither for nor against you. Because I'm not going to go out and contact these people and say, hey, you were supposed to answer this way, or hey, you were not supposed to answer this way. Whatever they answer is fine, as long as they stick to their own answers, as long as they don't try to attack me, or as long as they don't try to attack others, or as long as they don't try to intimidate people who want to potentially vote. All I'm asking, and like I said, just somebody, and I'm going to link to the, I'm just going to link to the Belmont report here, because I really feel that it's important for people to read this Belmont report so that they can see that this is not just an issue of, hey, I just want people to answer one way, or oh, I don't want people to answer one way. I'm trying to protect the voting rights of everybody, and I'm trying to make sure that everyone feels comfortable answering honestly for themselves, and that they can answer how they feel without feeling like they're going to be intimidated or attacked for it. And let me see if I can, for lack of a better term, dig into some of the comments a little bit to find where some of the really inappropriate comments were. Like here's what let me give you two of his inappropriate comments. He said, I would be a Christian, which all that is done in the name of Islam is an offense to God. Well, they got into an irrelevant fight there and he attacked somebody. And then he says to that same person, are you stupid? I love the denial. Go Obama. Obviously not appropriate in the research setting. And someone said, I'm tolerant of anyone as long as they don't try to make me believe what they want me to believe. And so this guy attacked back, like, you believe in red equal signs, LOL. And if I'm answering, I'm tolerant of anyone as long as, and then I get that person attacking me, I mean, it's no wonder that his reaction was this. Like, I believe in equal rights. Don't sound like, and this was his terminology, not mine, don't sound like a douchebag. And I'm not saying that I agree with it or disagree with it, but I can understand how he feels, I can understand why he feels how he feels, because he's giving an honest answer and he's being attacked for it. And I mean, there's an example of voter intimidation right there. So he has a profile picture and he gives his vote and says why he's giving it, and then he gets attacked for his vote, and he I just don't know what else to say. And let's see. And this is what I mean, here's another one of his comments. No, harm equals harm. Even a misanthrope like yourself should get that one. Well, that's attacking and intimidating other voters. And let's see. And it's just getting really out of hand on both sides, and they're getting in the irrelevant stuff. And let's see. So people are just really getting out of the way, just totally like someone said here, okay, so someone was getting into an inappropriate answer, and someone gave an appropriate answer back, LOL, duh, and the sky is blue. And then it got into another argument, and then the same person attacked another voter, and that he says to this person, so what? And I'm sitting there going, so what? That's her answer. She gave her answer. She explained why she felt how she felt. And as I said, my whole point is to try to protect the voting rights of everybody, to make sure that everybody is going to be able to honestly and fairly answer and feel like that if they give an honest answer about why they're voting, how they're voting, they're not going to be intimidated or attacked by other potential voters or other voters or by myself. And by the same token, I expect them not to attack me or to attack others or to attack other voters. And of course, others includes other potential voters. And I just don't know how I have to emphasize that. First of all, like I said, I'm not attacking anybody. I'm just asking everybody to stick to their own answers and to give their own answers. And like I said, whether or not I agree with answers like, quote unquote, I don't like missionaries, or whether or not I agree with answers like, let me just give a random answer, whether or not I agree with answers like this one, trying to see if whether or not I agree with an answer like this, trying to find an answer. Okay, but most of the answers that I'm at least finding on this page are very, let's see, someone said, they are my brothers and sisters in Jesus Christ, Yeshua HaMashiach. So whether or not I would agree that Jesus is the Messiah, or whether or not I would agree that Messianic Jews are, quote unquote, my brothers and sisters in Jesus Christ, he's giving his answer as to why he's very tolerant toward Messianic Jews, and he's sticking to his answer. And so my point is, I have to obviously follow research decorum and protect the rights of everybody, and I would expect that everybody in turn protect the rights of me as the researcher and the rights of others.